I'm Sid, I'm 19, I'm a soldier serving my national service, and the founder of Newton's Meter, a machine learning-based personal safety SOS device that critically reduces medical response times and facilitates the saving of lives. So Newton's Meter works by automatically detecting crashes and falls using a motion printing module customized to the user to determine whether or not that fall or crash could lead to injury. And if it's assessed to be dangerous, immediately transmitting this information to the user's loved ones and emergency services, along with the exact GPS location of the user. In short, we call for help when you can't. It's part of a new range of devices that capitalize on Internet of Things, IoT technology, where physical devices are connected to and able to, in a way, communicate with each other without the need for human intervention. This is done through smart systems that work using sensors as well as machine learning technology to constantly gather and refine information. I've been working on Newton's Meter for the past 6 years, developing and refining it, and in doing so, leaning in deeply and leaning on heavily entrepreneurial ecosystems, both locally and globally. In this capacity, I've had the experience of exhibiting at CES 2019 and 2020, both times where I had to sneak in due to being under the age requirement of 18. My journey in entrepreneurship has brought me to many new places, introduced me to many interesting people, and acquainted me with deeply current and relevant ideas. At CES, I had the opportunity to speak to various stakeholders in the entrepreneurial process, from founders to investors, engineers, distributors, scientists, and retailers. While part of the Emerging Stronger Conversations as a Smart Nation ambassador, I was acquainted with public sector perspectives as well, such as supporting and developing startups, as well as using entrepreneurship to serve the needs of society. These have led me to believe strongly in the value of entrepreneurship, especially with regard to building entrepreneurial ecosystems and communities which foster innovation, as well as give people the opportunity to take an active stake in their and their communities' lives, solving problems which affect them. Now, I'm certain that most, hopefully only some of you read my title, you'd think of me as deranged, a gambler, or more likely both. After all, the success rate for a startup on average is a dismal 12.5%. That's getting heads 3 times in a row. In my industry, consumer hardware, it's 3. That's flipping a coin enough times to be not so kindly asked to leave. Looking at that, maybe I could better advocate making a living off a slot machine, but hear me out. From those very same analyses, we've also found the most common reason startups do fail across every industry is misreading market demand, or more clearly, not addressing a need important enough. Now, I think this should engender a bit of reflection. Is that necessarily a bad thing at all? After all, we live in a world where technological improvements are typically incremental at best and come with their hidden caveats. In China, for example, the ubiquity of mobile payment systems like WeChat Pay may mean one spends 3 instead of 5 minutes in a queue if everyone were paying with credit cards instead. Yet, it also means the very act of making a purchase, not just the speed at which it is made, becomes exclusive to a smaller group of people. This is because while the process of mobile payment is faster, it also comes with greater barriers to entry with regard to the knowledge required to use it, leaving less technologically savvy groups like the elderly behind. A test of need is a baptism by fire, but how else may we test gold? Winston Churchill once remarked that we shape our buildings, thereafter they shape us. He was referring to physical buildings, but that rings prophetically true of technology today. Indeed, one could posit that tending to more and more complex technology today could take up more time than the convenience they ostensibly provide, even more so for the vulnerable. Through Newton's Meter, I participated in the IMDA Lab on Wheels program, an initiative where the elderly were introduced to modern technology that was hopefully a little more intuitive to use. Through our dialogues, what I found was revealing, but not too surprising. In the pre-program survey, many of the participants felt that technology was a hassle. Indeed, they had to cater to technology rather than it facilitating and augmenting their quality of life. Was it shocking then? They swore off what was to them nothing more than a fanciful reimagination of some national examination that we're so familiar with? I doubt so. And beyond that, those experiences also made them cold to the idea of technology itself. They started to leave themselves behind. See, there's already a gap between the user and the developer, and technology is developed in such a way that it's not intuitive anymore, that people go even slower. So first they may not be able to catch up, and then they don't even bother to catch up. And that just makes the gap grow wider and wider. We've seen two key issues here. First, startups fail a lot. Second, the technology's accelerating pace is starting to leave people behind. The answer to both of these is need-based, inclusive entrepreneurship. What does that mean? It's a lot more intuitive than it sounds. It means living your life as you ordinarily would and just opening your eyes a little wider, noticing things that seem to make life difficult or painful. We all face inconveniences in our daily lives, but instead of relegating it to a half-forgotten stash of memories, bear the heat a little longer so the light can come out. Now, this comes in very simple, intuitive, and practical ways. Think of the complaints you've muttered and look towards how these could be solved. Maybe it's the train coming late, maybe it's the buses coming late, it could be something like that. Or it could be the weather being too hot, anything, any complaints that you've been having. And think of it in a way that keeps it accessible to as many people as possible. So your solutions should increase the number of people that have access to it rather than decrease it. And then here's the big ask: take a leap and just go forth. Start distilling the idea into something. Make a flowchart or split it into bite-sized components, whatever gives you clarity. If it's a technological idea, Google a few relevant terms and parts you think might help you achieve the function you want. You don't need to be an engineer, you need to be able to communicate with one. Start to build a team, but don't do it just because you happen to know someone. Look at how each member can contribute and themselves grow. Listen to your team, and even more so, listen to the world around you, as you did before, and see if anything can be done to refine it. Focus on proving to yourself, then your team, and then the world that your idea works. Now, all of this advice is a little bit vague, and any suggestion necessarily will be vague at such an early stage, but as you keep refining it, it starts to reflect more and more. It starts to reflect in a much more profound manner, and it starts to allow you and empower you to deliver the impact you wish to deliver. And you avoid the biggest pitfall of technology today, which is not addressing the needs of people. Entrepreneurship is often viewed with a degree of awe, and that comes in two parts. One is the ostensible lunacy of playing such a bad numbers game. Two is the feeling that it's only limited to people who receive some almost mythical inspiration. In truth, the best ideas don't drop from the sky, but come from the ground up. To me, what entrepreneurship truly is a vessel, one little challenging to operate at times, but yet the fastest and most targeted one to affect the change I wish to see. It is, most of all, an investment in the future, optimism in the face of bleakness, and a deeper involvement in the world, and by extension, each other. When entrepreneurship becomes a tool to solve problems rather than a magic rocket to the bank, it's a lot easier to avoid burnout too. When I feel lost, confused, and most of all stuck, the first vision that appears isn't the dazzling Eureka Park in CES, nor the first sound cameras clicking. When planes can't go up and charts start to go down, and sometimes I with them, the first thing I hear are ambulance sirens jolting me up from my uneasy sleep. Red beacons flashing across the grey sky, hopelessly trying to keep the red blood in, and pulling the carriage away from that dim sky. I remember the night, dark as pitch with no artificial light. I think of peering my head out of the window that night upon hearing a bang, looking down and seeing nothing, going back to sleep, feeling tense, till those fateful sirens woke me up. I see a man I could have seen only if he'd been able to call out to me, a man whom I failed to save, a man who I could have saved, but I failed to save. I owe it to him and to everyone else who couldn't call for help when they needed it. I owe it to them to make this work and keep it working. Similarly, you owe it to everyone you can help with what you've gleaned from observing the world. You owe it to them and to yourself to give it a shot. Also, here's where all this starts to grow into more than a jolt. When enough people start to embark on entrepreneurship, ecosystems start to slowly be cultivated. And this begins to make the numbers game a little less of a crapshoot too. You start to build a place that works to facilitate and grow startups. Technical and branding experts start to fly in, offering their skills to help boost your progress. Government bodies start to see the surge too, and soon enough grants start to trickle in. Investors start to come in as well. And another huge reason why startups fail, the lack of funding, starts to be ameliorated too. Few other things happen too. Mentorship begins to take place and specific, concrete advice is given. Beyond that, avenues for collaboration with other startups open up too, sharpening and enhancing ideas. Most crucially, more people start to take the leap, and a virtuous cycle continues almost everywhere you are. This is already there, and it's up to you to keep the cycle going. As technological forces become more pervasive and powerful, entrepreneurship provides us a path to democratize it, to influence firsthand the direction that technology travels, as well as create precedents and practices that can later form the building blocks for ethical standards ever evolving to encapsulate the changing nature of technology. In creating strong privacy standards when it comes to data captured by machine learning modules, for example, provides a framework for legislators to take reference to when regulating technology. Entrepreneurship can also drive the adoption of newer, more efficient technology. One such example would be narrowband IoT, NB-IoT, an energy-efficient and low-cost way to facilitate communication between IoT devices. The start infrastructure to support NB-IoT was very limited, but as more people build solutions incorporating NB-IoT, it's starting to become more and more widespread. Entrepreneurship thus allows us to harness technological developments. It was said at the dawn of the atomic age by Omar Bradley that ours is a world of nuclear giants and ethical infants. That sentiment rings truer with each technological advancement we make, leaving the ethics behind them as an afterthought while legislators scramble to keep up. Advances in machine learning technology have brought about conveniences such as automatic transcription of interviews and speeches, yet they've also enabled the creation of deepfakes. Deepfakes pose both ethical and legal challenges where altered images and videos can result in likenesses of people appearing in pornographic content or falsely confessing to a crime. This illustrates the importance of greater involvement in our technological landscape, whether through entrepreneurship, investment, or spreading awareness, so that the nature of the technology that flourishes and ultimately shapes our lives improves our lives. Another key issue of the information age is the knowledge gap between creators of new technologies and most consumers of it. As such, many consumers may unwittingly consent to agreements or policies that they don't fully understand, such as policies on data collection. These can lead to a significant loss of privacy for the consumer without them even knowing. Having local community-based groups pool money together and invest in homegrown, need-based, inclusive entrepreneurial solutions addresses many of these concerns. These communities can be anything from universities to residence groups or professional associations. It allows people to take active involvement in solving their community's issues, fosters a culture of innovation, and cultivates a community of mentorship that reduces barriers of entry for new entrepreneurs. Such organizations also allow for a practical application of technological ethics and create precedent for technology following societal needs being shaped by moral considerations. An initiative like this would both advance the community as well as bring it closer. Furthermore, regardless of whether people partake in ethical discussions or financial investments, the existence of these organizations, not just its participants, make people more conscious of technology and reduces the information gap between the producer and the consumer. The communal nature of this also addresses another pertinent concern that I had mentioned, which is groups of people, such as the elderly, being left behind with regard to new technological developments. When such initiatives are ground up, all stakeholders are taken into account in increasing access rather than creating something that may potentially restrict it becomes paramount. The entrepreneurial process can be a daunting maze replete with numerous developmental challenges, patenting considerations, certification hurdles, as well as the stress of exhibition. Coming together also allows access to a diverse talent pool and allows people to grow their skills in their respective domains while also contributing to their community's entrepreneurial landscape. At its heart, partaking in entrepreneurship when looking to solve a problem we believe needs to be solved ensures that technology is there to serve humanity, and empowers us to leave a positive impact on the world. As long as we do this, while making our solutions intuitive, inclusive, and necessary, it both increases our chances of success as well as the change that they can cause. Fundamentally, if we stay disconnected from the development around us and merely let it happen to us rather than make it happen, we live at the mercy of circumstance. But if we, through entrepreneurship, become stakeholders in positive change, we can shape tomorrow. Thank you.